I hear the author is fearful that we might have one party control both chambers and the executive branch. Well, we had that within my period of time serving on here. And I think I would probably be more fearful of that time than the author. But, you know, frankly, are we being hyperbolic about things nationally? I know there's a lot of gerrymandering of districts in California which already has a similar citizen, etc. commission and not the legislature. So there's no guarantee that if we take this proposal, but if I look at this, how does this bill stand on its own? At least the copy that was in my packet didn't appear to have the system at which a supermajority of the members would be selected and chosen. And frankly, that's disconcerting because a bill should be able to be complete, stand on its own. And it's flawed to say, well, we've got these other bills that might pass. Frankly, a lot of people let us know we got bills back this year that were part of a supplemental omnibus bill and etc. that were vetoed. But a lot of us thought, well, gee, it passed with a fairly good support. It would become law. So we should not be moving forward a bill that is not capable of standing on its own because it's missing a process, little teeny thing that has the vast majority, a supermajority of the entity we're trying to support creating undefined. That, if I was to vote for, would be malfeasance. So I've got a couple areas of which I have difficulty with this bill. Thank you.
It's more of a statement than a question, I see there.
Mr. Chair, I think part of our duty here is to have a conversation and let the author and the other members know about aspects of the bill. And if we are going to restrict allowing statements by members or criticizing and trying to impede that.
Representative Paul, I did not shut you down. I just said that sounded more like a statement than a question. I didn't hear a question in there. Representative Claiborne, you have a question?
I do have a question, and as we are looking at this bill, I just want to make sure that the purpose of our committee, we are not here to really scrutinize the bill line by line. That was done in other committees. Are we not here to speak to the fiscal note and the cost for state government? I'm just trying to get some guidance and clarity on.
Well, Representative Claiborne, we are the finance committee, and we should be looking at the finance piece of it, but the other portions of the bill, we also are open to discussion here because they deal with it, how this is going to be financed. So I believe some of the discussion we're having is appropriate, but we are here to discuss the finances of it, and it gets moved down to Ways and Means, and then Ways and Means will send it where it needs to go. Normally a constitutional amendment has to go to rules before it can go to the floor. And in past years, answer some of what Representative Kwam's question is about the mechanics of this. The mechanics of this is, if this passes, it'll be on the ballot next time. Probably isn't enough time to set up this commission for the next redistricting because that'll be right at the time we should be, or around the time we should be doing this. But we'll have to pass legislation to set up that commission, and that can be done in a separate vote or a separate bill.
Then my question might be then to Ms. Roberts. Are you anticipating, so you have given us this number of $57,000 roughly, and I'm just wondering if you think it would be significantly more than that, or if that truly would be.
Mr. Chair and members, I misspoke. I was looking at the wrong table. On the fiscal note, it was on the wrong version. Again, the cost for simply putting a question on the ballot is about $2,000, which will be absorbed. If this, if the amendment was passed, the estimated cost that the LCC was looking at for the commission would be, $155,000 in the first year and then $47,000 in the second year. But we wouldn't track those costs anywhere because those are considered secondary and would only occur if the amendment passed.
It just seems to me the number that we originally heard was low, so I just wanted to make sure I truly understood the impact.
I misspoke, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking at the language in the state constitution. It says in Article 4, Section 3, that the legislature shall have the power to prescribe the bounds of congressional and legislative districts. Given what Mr. Watson said, I mean, it's hard to characterize what the legislature's done in the last several redistricting cycles as anything besides a failure, because we've left it to a panel of judges. We haven't, I'm very glad to see this bill. I think it's something that's much needed. We haven't, because it's been left to a panel of judges, I don't think we have had much gerrymandering. There have been fairly competitive districts, but we easily could, and frankly, we easily could on the DFL side of things in the next, we will have a DFL governor that will oversee the next redistricting cycle. The House is currently DFL controlled. It is possible it could stay that way, and it's possible in the 2020 election that the Senate could flip. And gerrymandering can go both ways. The example of Wisconsin was given. That's primarily a Republican, the accusations have been that gerrymandering was caused by the Republicans there. The state of Maryland, there have been accusations that state is gerrymandered as well, and that's been a Democratic controlled process there. I think this is a needed good government reform. I'm glad Representative Schultz has brought it forward. Constitutional amendments are often passed and the details are left to the legislature to fill it in, so this wouldn't be anything new. So I'm certainly supportive of this bill, and I'm glad to see it here.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Schultz, I just want to spend a couple minutes looking at the bill itself and some of the specifics in here. Let me start by talking about, and certainly respectful of what Chair Freiberg and Chair Nelson have said about the enabling language that isn't in this bill, that would actually be the responsibility of the the legislature as well as other governing bodies. But we don't make decisions about law in a vacuum. And we're certainly, from my impression, making a decision here based upon a glass half full. We're making a decision based upon enabling a group of people to make decisions about what's in the best interests of the state without really knowing, as an example, on page 1, on line 1.21, where it says a public member must be eligible. So how are they appointed, and where do they come from? Just as a start, Mr. Chair.
Representative Schultz.
Well, you can look at House File 1605, or you can look at when this bill was divided at the enabling legislation for details, or the legislature can decide to come up with different enabling legislation to see how a bipartisan agreement we can get to fill those slots.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Schultz, you've just given me 4 different options to choose from. That's not how we make legislation. We make legislation based upon what is in a bill. And if it doesn't stand on its own merits, you can't enact language based upon what's in other pieces of law or other suggested legislative intent. It doesn't work that way. Representative Schultz, on page 3, lines 3.15 through 3.20, could you explain how that section of the bill works?
Representative Schultz. Maybe Mr. Watson. 3.15 to 3.20 is what I heard.
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's the proportionality guideline. So these are the principles, guidelines that that should be used with drawing the maps.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Albright.
Mr. Chair, you just explained that in subjective terms that do not give, as if I were a member of the commission, any clarity in terms of how I would go about objectively looking at redistricting or putting a map together. Representative Schultz, could you explain lines 3.23 through 3.25?
Representative Schultz.
What are those principles, Representative Schultz?
You want me to read through the whole bill?
I'd just like, for clarity, if the whole bill is a principle, Mr. Chair, that's a subjective term. This is a subjective want versus a need. I will close my comments with a couple things. You know, and I think I share Representative Quam's observations. You know, oftentimes we denigrate, not denigrate, we criticize the process that's in statute. And let's just for a second take a look at the process of redistricting. It's murky from a standpoint of you don't know what's gonna happen, but in every case, the legislature has done its job and moved forward a map that was felt to be appropriate based upon the demographics and the census data. And in every case, the executive branch has decided that they wanted to do it differently, not the legislature. Representative Schultz, you are bringing forth a bill to state government finance that doesn't have a fiscal note. With respect to Ms. Roberts, we don't know the full details of a fiscal note on this bill. We have assumptions, but they are incumbent upon us knowing in order to put a bill together next week for state government finance that will affect our target. You have no enabling language in this. You've given me 4 different observations in terms of how I might interpret this based upon 4 other bills that are working through the process right now. That's not good legislation. Mr. Chair, a question for you in terms of recommendation after the re-referral back to Ways and Means. Is there a recommendation that we are giving to Ways and Means?
Mr. Representative Albright, no. As I stated in my other remarks, constitutional amendments have to go to rules. That's part of our process. I believe it's in our rules. So that's probably where it's gonna end up. But we're sending to the Uber chair, and the Uber chair of the Ways and Means Committee will decide if it's gotta go elsewhere.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to amend your re-referral with the recommendation that it be re-referred to elections. And I would request a roll call.
It's already been elections.
Well, a roll call has been requested. There's an amendment. Representative Schultz.
So this bill has already been heard in elections.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Albright.
And Representative Schultz, and first I want to clarify my motion that it would go to GovOps rather than elections, because elections actually is subordinate to GovOps. And to the assertion by the author of the bill that it's already been submitted, Mr. Chair, I don't think that this is ready for prime time. And I think that it would be incumbent upon the Government Operations Committee, and the chair is in our midst today, that he reconsider the provisions of this bill and think long and hard about some of the observations made by the members of this committee.
With that, members, there's a motion has been made to amend the motion to send this bill to Ways and Means.
Mr. Chair Nelson, may I speak to that before you take a vote?
Just let's vote. We can get this off. We need to get moving along on this.
Okay.
The Clerk will take the roll.
On the motion to refer to Ways and Means with a recommendation to Government Ops,
Correct.
To amend the
to
motion.
amend the motion, Chair Nelson,
No.
Vice Chair Carlson,
No.
Representative Albright,
Yes.
Representative Acom,
No.
Representative Elkins,
No.
Representative Freiberg,
No.
Representative Green,
Yes.
Representative Hertas,
Yes.
Representative Hewitt,
No.
Representative Keel,
Yes.
Representative Cleaborn,
No.
Representative Lippert,
No.
Representative Long,
No.
Representative Mason,
No.
Representative Olson,
No.
Representative Quam,
See,
Representative Vogel.
Yes. Being 11 nays and 6 ayes, the motion fails.
Mr. Chair,
Representative
I
Albright.
make a motion to table the bill. And I will request a roll call.
Motion's been made to table the bill. Roll call being asked for. Clerk will take the roll.
Chair Nelson,
No.
Vice Chair Carlson,
No.
Representative Albright,
Yes.
Representative Acom,
No.
Representative Elkins,
No.
Representative Freiberg,
No.
Representative Green,
Yes.
Representative Hertas,
Yes.
Representative Hewitt,
No.
Representative Keel,
Yes.
Representative Cleaborn,
No.
Representative Lippert,
No.
Representative Long,
No.
Representative Mason,
No.
Representative Olson,
No.
Representative Quam,
Aye.
Representative Vogel.
Yeah. There being 6 ayes and 11 nays, the motion failed.
Mr. Chair,
Representative Albright.
request a roll call on referral of the motion that you made.
Okay, there's a roll call's been requested. I got 2 more people on the list here, we got 2 more bills we have to do. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just a couple of comments. First of all, I think Mr. Watson made a very compelling argument for the bill, and I know Representative Schultz has worked a long time on this bill. But I did find Representative Plum's perspective interesting as well. The comment I want to make is, whatever you feel about the bill, we will be giving up our legislative authority, and my guess it will be forever. And to me, that is a big deal, so, it's something to think about, because we're gonna have to live with that decision forever. And somewhere along the line, somebody thought the legislature did have the ability to do this.
Representative Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the question I had has been already asked and answered, but the comment is the same as Representative Mason. This is, the legislature has done its job. The executive branch didn't agree, and that's why this was put into the court. That is our system. But to advocate our authority is wrong, and we do it a lot around here. If things don't go the way we want, well, let's take the authority away from the legislature. This is our job, guys. This is one of the reasons why we're here. And to say we don't like the way the system is working, so let's put it in the hands of someone else. There's no guarantee that if this goes into the hands of the commission, these still aren't gonna end up in court. You think that because a panel has been appointed, that no one is gonna be disagreeing with that panel? This is not gonna solve our problem, but it is going to damage the authority of the legislature. I do not like this bill. I hope that it does not move.
Seeing no further questions, a roll call being requested, I'll redo my motion that House File 1855 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. All those, clerk will take the roll.
Chair Nelson. Vice Chair Carlson. Representative Albright.
No.
Representative Acom.
Yes.
Representative Elkins.
Yes.
Representative Freiberg.
Yes.
Representative Green.
No.
Representative Hertaus.
No.
Representative Hewitt.
Yes.
Representative Keel.
No.
Representative Claiborne.
Yes.
Representative Lippert.
Yes.
Representative Long.
Yes.
Representative Mason.
Yes.
Representative Olson.
Yes.
Representative Plum.
Nay.
Representative Vogel.
The vote being 11 ayes and 6 nays, the motion passes.